I shouldn't like this. All of these sounds are so contrasting and weird together. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am Molly, and in this video I am going to be listening to the album October Rust from the band Type O Negative. Now this album has definitely been requested a lot by you guys, and I thought it only appropriate to listen to it now that we're into October and Halloween is coming up. It just seemed like the right season to sit down and give this album a listen, and yeah, I'm just really excited to hear some of Type O Negative's music and just see what I'm going to think of October Rust. Alright, so starting off October Rust, we have track 1, which is called Bad Ground. It's just like this constant electronic buzzing tone I'm hearing.
Yeah, on.
We spent a couple of months getting high, working on it. We hope you enjoy it.
Well, that was track 1, Bad Ground, and I just let it run right into track 2 as well, which it looks like it's just an untitled track of sorts. The first 2 songs on this album are really short, like under a minute long, so it's almost just like a little introduction almost to this album. So moving on to track 3, we have Love You to Death. I wasn't expecting all of this piano, to be honest. I like it. I love the sound of that guitar. It kind of has this slightly distorted, staticky quality to it. And now there's like a almost squeaky sounding electronic sound they're using. Now the song is almost lifting up, like it's getting kind of lighter and more ethereal sounding with its tone. Even the vocals have a certain smoothness to them. It just sounds like you're floating. That part was cool. It's like the song powered down there for a second, and then there was some electronic tones yet again. Well, that was track 3, Love You to Death. I absolutely loved the tone of that song. It fused a lot of contrasting elements. I like how you had the very classical sounding piano, especially at the start there, but then they fused on that really distorted, reverberated guitar, which kind of gave it this atmospheric, haunted quality. And then you had the electronic elements that they were adding on too, just kind of here and there, they would sprinkle those in, and it was just such a unique touch to that song. And then his vocals were really fascinating as well. I loved how deep he got with his voice sometimes. All right, moving on to track 4, we have Be My Druidess. Okay, a lot of distortion right off the bat with this one. I really am enjoying the tone of the instrumentals that they're using so far. It's like everything is kind of blurry. There's like a haze over the sound of this album. And there's a nice contrast between the vocals and the instrumentals because his voice is pretty clear, and then the instrumentals have that fuzzy quality I was talking about. I love this part of the song. It almost has this droning, wide open, expansive quality to it. That was track 4, Be My Druidess. I thought the atmosphere that they created on that one was just fantastic. Again, kind of like the previous track, Love You to Death, it combined a lot of interesting elements. I would say Be My Druidess, though, definitely went a little bit heavier on kind of the distortion, the creepier, more haunted quality that they have in their music. And lyrically, it was kind of about falling into someone's spell, like being completely powerless to the control that they have over you. And it kind of goes along with the whole witchy, kind of haunted vibe of this album so far. But moving on to track 5, we have Green Man. Okay, quite a tone change from that last track. This one's talking about like springtime and there's these birds chirping that you can hear. This album really is fascinating. It's like if you took classic rock music and kind of gave it like this Renaissance flair, like this Old English kind of vibe to it. Life is coming to an end. It kind of matches the tone change now this song just took. It started off with all of those springtime sounds and the birds chirping, and now some distortion came in and it made the song almost colder. I think there was some subtle flute there for a second. Well, that was track 5, Green Man. That one was cool in how it started off really warm and kind of vibrant and lots of life. And then later on, with all the distortion they introduced, it was like life was coming to an end. And that definitely matched lyrically with that song as well. I just thought it was cool how they were doing that. But I'm going to move on to track 6 now, which is called Red Water Christmas Mourning. I love his vocals. They're just so seething almost. It's interesting the last song was talking about springtime and it had that tone to it, and then this one is called Christmas Mourning and it's kind of evocative of like a wintry landscape and very cold and kind of isolated feeling. I like this really subtle percussive element. It's like sleigh bells. I love this guitar. Again, paired with like these chimey bell-like sounds, it's just such an interesting combination going on. Now there's some ambient sounds. It sounds like someone crying and then glass shattering. Well, that was track 6, Red Water Christmas Mourning. It had this really big, expansive quality to it. Like they managed to create such a large sound with that one. And I liked how they were fusing on a lot of wintry, like Christmas time themes with the sounds and the lyrics. Like it was talking about stockings being hung and there were those jingle bell sounds they put in the background really subtly. But lyrically, that was such a depressing kind of joyless song. And Christmas is usually all about joy and merriment and having fun with other people, like your family members and loved ones. And that song was very stripped of all of that. Like it was very lonely sounding, but they were still utilizing those Christmassy themes. I thought that was a cool juxtaposition. But moving on now to track 7, we have My Girlfriend's Girlfriend. Okay, this one's got some energy to it. Yeah, this is probably the most upbeat song on this album so far. Oh, we've got the birds chirping coming back. And again, it's like this song just had a tone change. Now it sounds a lot more smooth and kind of like it opened up a little bit with its sound. Well, that was track 7, My Girlfriend's Girlfriend. Definitely very up-tempo, very danceable. And honestly, I mean this as a compliment when I say this album almost sounds older than when it was released. Like, it was released in 1996, and it almost has like a really retro, like 80s metal paired with this old English flair to it. It's really fascinating to listen to. But moving on to track 8, we have Die With Me. Like the way he just pronounced that word dreams, there's just such a unique tone to his vocal delivery at times. Okay, so there's a very acoustic vibe to this song at the start, and now it's kind of bringing in a little bit more power to it. Yeah, there's a very calming nature to the tone of this song, but then lyrically it's still talking about like wanting to die with someone, missing someone because they're not there. Like a lot of disparity in the vocals, but kind of a hopeful, peaceful tone musically. These electric guitars just have such this amazing reverberated sound to them. It's just cool. It's making this whole album sound really expansive. It sounds like an airplane flying overhead. Alright, then we just had a very abrupt ending to that one. But that was track 8, Die With Me. I loved how that one oscillated between this really warm, kind of hopeful, calm tone with the acoustic instrumentation there at the start and the end. And then there was kind of this really cold, isolated feeling when they brought in the distortion and the electric guitars. They seem to be doing that on this album. There's like a play on kind of warmth and coldness and hopefulness and despair. Alright, moving on to track 9, we have Burnt Flowers Fallen. This whole album so far has just been me sitting here thinking, I shouldn't like this. All of these sounds are so contrasting and weird together, but it's catchy. It's very catchy. I don't know how it works, but they're blending it all together in a very fascinating way. I love the percussion at times on this song. It's got this really big, kind of thunderous quality to it, but it's kind of soft at the same time. Like it's almost a muffled loudness. And again, we have the theme of flowers coming in, kind of evocative of springtime. And you've got this piano too at this part. It has this really fresh vibrancy to its sound. That was track 9, Burnt Flowers Fallen. Very relaxing and kind of trance-inducing of a track. But again, there's like a sadness, kind of a despondency to the lyrics of it. There's like this underlying kind of lonely feeling on this album. Like lyrically, it was talking about all of the flowers that he gave her. She burned them and she's falling out of love, and he's kind of left there with nothing, essentially. All right, up next is track 10, which is called In Praise of Bacchus. These vocals are really distorted and kind of pushed into the background a little bit. Now it's almost like the song is revving up. It's interesting. I'm actually picking up on some slight similarities with Loveless by My Bloody Valentine. At times, there's just all of this distortion they use on this album, and it's almost like a wall of sound. It's so fascinating to listen to. And then this part is almost very ballad-like. It's got a very calming sound to it. Okay, another tone change. Yeah, at times this album is so clear with its sound, and then they bring this distortion in. It just gives it this really fuzzy sound. It muddies the water, so to speak. Like there's not a lot of clarity there. Well, that was track 10, In Praise of Bacchus. Definitely one of the more kind of reined-in songs on this album. There's some that are a little bit more punchier or upbeat, and then that one was definitely a little more slowed down. But with all of the sounds and effects they're using, there's a very, very strong shoegaze element to this album at times, like especially on these slower tracks, I'm noticing that. All right, so moving on to track 11, we have Cinnamon Girl. Okay, now we're back to kind of a more punchier, energetic track. I love the guitar on this one. It's just got a great punchiness to it. Yeah, there's just some noises they're putting in way in the background that have this really echoey quality. That was track 11, Cinnamon Girl. What I loved about that one was that guitar. It had this amazing kind of speedy quality to it, but then paired with his odd vocal delivery, again, it's such an interesting combination of sounds. But yeah, that was definitely a punchier track. It brought some amazing energy to this album, very danceable and upbeat. But I'm going to move on to track 12 now, which is called The Glorious Liberation of the People's Technocratic Republic of Vinnland by the combined forces of the United Territories of Europa. This song is only a minute long, and I think just saying the title is longer than the track itself. Okay, this one's very heavy and dense sounding. Lots of garbled, like electronic voices, almost like someone speaking over a megaphone. And then it ends with, it sounded like just a helicopter flying overhead. But that was track 12, The Glorious Liberation. I'm just going to end it there. I'm not going to say that track name again. Something kind of militaristic about the sound of that, and a very triumphant tone to it as well. Almost like an army just won a battle or a war somewhere, and they're like going back home and celebrating in the streets. That was just the vibe it was giving off. But I'm going to move on to track 13, which is called Wolf Moon, including Zoanthropic Paranoia. Nice. I really like this percussion. It's really strong, but it's softened. There's like this kind of hazy quality to the sound of it. He definitely does a lot of like vocal acrobatics with his delivery. I really do enjoy it. It's keeping a lot of variety on this album just with the vocals alone. It's not even taking into account the instrumental variety going on too. The instrumentation just has the most fascinating tone to it across this whole album. And then they introduce these more classical sounding instruments that give it, again, kind of that old English sound. Okay, now there's some sounds here toward the end that are reminiscent of that last minute-long track, like kind of that militaristic chanting and percussion going on. Well, that was track 13, Wolf Moon, including Zoanthropic Paranoia. I really enjoyed that one. It had kind of a softness to it. Definitely, again, one of the more kind of muted, like reined in songs on this album. I really liked how he was changing up his voice a lot on that song and bringing a lot of variety to his vocal delivery, but it was done in a really cohesive, smooth way. Like it never felt jarring or out of place at all. But I'm going to move on to the last titled track on this album, which is track 14 called Haunted. There's also an untitled song at the end that's only 8 seconds long, so I'm just going to listen to these two together and we'll see how this album is going to conclude. Yeah, it's like this flood of distortion just comes in. Alright, we have some organ, it sounds like, in the background here. This one is really drawn out with its delivery. Like his vocals, it's almost like he's stretching them out. Right, here come the deep vocals again. It was almost like the first half of that song was lulling you into this calm trance, and then they just pulled you down into this underworld of sound.
From the pains of green mist you are lost, incarnate, hate the
And then when they bring that piano in, it's, again, just such a unique contrast. Like the piano has this really warm, kind of embracing sound, but then the rest of the instrumentals sound so cold and barren.
Well, that's about it. That's all we have. We will see you on tour. Until then, Take it easy.
Well, that was track 14, Haunted, the final track on October Rust. Very drawn out and slow and kind of meandering with its sound, but they threw on a lot of unexpected stuff. Like that change up, I think it was almost halfway through that song, was really unexpected. I loved that part of it. It went from this really calm, kind of serene first half, and then it was like they just pulled you into this darker, heavier version of that song. All right, well, that is officially my reaction to October Rust, the fourth studio album from the band Type O Negative. This whole project was absolutely riveting for me to listen to, so experimental and just a combination of sounds that you would not expect to work, but it somehow does. I love the kind of Renaissance Old English flair that they had on this album, paired with these really distorted kind of 80s heavy metal sounds, and it just blended so seamlessly. I don't really know how, but it did. Track 3, Love You to Death, was absolutely a standout for me. I loved that one, how they paired that piano and a lot of softer elements with, again, that kind of cold, atmospheric tone. And also track 4, Be My Druidess, was a huge standout. That one was a little bit more punchy and upbeat. And track 9, Burnt Flowers Fallen, had a little bit more of an emotional impact, a little bit more kind of on the side of sounding like a ballad. But I thought this whole album from start to finish was just wild to listen to, so incredibly entertaining, probably one of the more interesting, just fascinating albums that I've heard in a while. And hearing October Rust has definitely made me want to check out more from Type O Negative now. I loved this project and I definitely want to hear the rest of their albums. But yeah, as usual, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned and I will see you in the next video.